It's Josh. Roam Real Eat. Monday is a holiday. Monday is Labor Day. Also, this happens to be the first full week of college football. We had some teaser games last weekend. We had some teaser games last night. One of which, the University of South Florida Bulls took the Boise State Broncos, ranked number 25th in the country, behind the woodshed and just beat the brakes off them. So Boise came out and scored a touchdown, and all you got to do is watch the highlights. And after that, it was all USF. And they thoroughly defeated Boise State last night after Boise State scored their first touchdown. And I'm proud of USF, proud of what's going on at USF. Getting a new stadium, finally getting away from that sham deal they got at Raymond James Stadium, and they'll be on campus. If anybody attended USF, so for students, you're free to go to the game, but Raymond James Stadium's across town, so you had to go to the Marshall Center. You had to wait for a bus to pick you up, bus you over there. You couldn't just leave whenever you wanted to. You had to leave and wait for a bus to come pick you up or get full. And if you were a college kid and you had a car and you were driving, if you were going there to party, it probably wasn't the best idea to go there and get drunk at a stadium and drive your way back. I mean, unless you're a Georgia football player, maybe that's a good idea, or a Miami football player. But so USF last night made me proud to be a USF alum, and hoping they keep it competitive with Florida next week, and they got Miami then the following week, and I thoroughly believe they have a shot to make that a game. We'll get into Miami here in a bit. First weekend of college football, some big time games. LSU plays Clemson, top 10 matchup. I'm not sold on LSU. Brian Kelly has notoriously not been able to win a big game in Division I in a big time program. He won at Grand Valley State. He won at Western Michigan. But when he got to Notre Dame, he just couldn't win a big game, which surprises me that LSU gave him $100 million, because they gave him $100 million to win a national title. And he's proven to not, he's the James Franklin of LSU. He may know X's and O's. He may sometimes be able to relate to the players. I think James Franklin does a better job of that. But when it comes time for a big game and to put the players in a position to be successful, he just can't do it. And another thing, look, I'm not a Penn State fan by any means, but one good thing about Penn State with their head coach is their head coach, he's a quality coach, right? But he doesn't throw his players under the bus. And it doesn't take a genius to watch too many games where Brian Kelly's coached to see him just on the sideline berating his players, berating, assistant coaches and stuff on the sidelines, throwing them under the bus in the post-game press conference. And it's an awful lot of excuses that get thrown on the players. So as far as Brian Kelly goes, man, look, Dabo Swinney or Brian Kelly, I'm not a fan of either one. Either one has an ego that's out of this world, right? So Dabo's made comments lately about, most of the players in the transfer portal aren't good enough to play for Clemson. Well, since Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, really, who have you had that's really, been there? Nobody. So, for Dabo to make a comment like that, I find it hard to believe that he truly thinks that most of the players in the transfer portal couldn't play for Clemson, right? So let's get that little ego tidbit out of the way for Dabo. But Brian Kelly is like next level egotistical, right? You don't get to be a college coach. You don't get to be a coach of a big time program unless you're a competitive guy. But Brian Kelly is just, he's slimy, man. When you listen to Brian Kelly speak, you feel like you need to go take a shower when he gets done. He's all over the place. Nothing's ever his fault. When he does, when the coaching staff, when it's time for the coaching staff to take the fall for something, he even wards that as coaches, we have to put them in a better position to win. As coaches, we have to put them in a better position to be successful. He's never just said, you know what, I'm the head coach, the buck stops with me. Look, I didn't have them in the position they needed to be successful, right? And so when you're throwing players under the bus, when you have that no humility, no sense of responsibility, don't be mad when people don't like you and when people root against you. So in all actuality, it could be a good game. I think both teams are overrated. I think LSU is going to be maybe the fourth or fifth best team in the SEC. They're not going to be one of the top three. I think Brian Kelly isn't even one of the top 5 coaches in the SEC, to be honest with you. I mean, I'm not a fan of the tactics Lane Kiffin puts on. It seems like everywhere he goes, he falls in shit and comes out smelling like a rose. But I think X's and O's, Lane Kiffin's a better coach. The ability to relate to players, Lane Kiffin's a better coach. I think Alabama, Georgia, I think South Carolina, even Kentucky, those coaches to me are better coaches than LSU has in Brian Kelly. So good luck with that buyout when he falls this year and doesn't make it to the playoffs and you guys start calling for his job. Good luck paying that buyout. So I think LSU may pull out a win, but man, if that game could end 0-0, that would be great. So, well, what's next on the docket this weekend? Big game against Ohio State in Texas. What a matchup that's going to be, right? So both teams were outstanding last year, and I think both teams are going to be outstanding this year. Both teams lost production on both sides of the ball, considerable amount of production, but both teams had really, really deep rosters last year. So it's with them, both these teams are going to be a next man in. So this is a top 5 matchup. You may see this matchup right here again in the playoffs. So Ohio State and Texas, they're going to duke it out, and look for that to be a slugfest. There could be a lot of excitement. Tug of war, this thing's going to go back and forth, I think, and it's not going to be a blowout, barring an injury to Arch Manning or a significant injury on the Georgia side. You know, barring something like that, this is going to be a quality game. And as far as Arch Manning goes, man, like the bloodlines, right? So Archie Manning was an outstanding NFL football player, and then Peyton and Eli are both guaranteed Hall of Famers. Peyton's already there. Eli's on his way in the next coming couple years. And from what I hear, Cooper Manning, who is Arch's father, was one of the siblings in the Peyton and Eli family. And from what I hear, Cooper was a better wide receiver than Peyton and Eli were quarterbacks. Some health problems that ended his football career in high school. But color me surprised that out of that family comes another big name, quality quarterback that can just dissect the defense, that that can recognize blitzes and packages and coverages, has a strong arm, and I'm not going to be surprised this guy, in the next, either this year or next year, he's going to be the number one player drafted, and I think he's going to have an outstanding career wherever he goes. Like I said, the bloodlines are there's something in the family down there when it comes to NFL talent, football talent. So that game, man, it's going to be close. If either team wins by more than 10 points and there are no significant injuries, I'm going to be shocked. This is a big time game, and to have that on week 1 will be outstanding. So the next big game on the list is, I'm going to save it for last, Sunday evening. It's going to be a primetime game, the only game on TV. No NFL teams on playing on Sunday, and you won't have to worry about going to work on Monday morning because it's Labor Day. So if this turns out to be a barn burner, it's going to be a good game unless you're a Miami fan. And so Notre Dame and Miami, top 10 matchup in Miami. Notre Dame travels well. I'm not really worried about Notre Dame being the road team. If you're Syracuse and you're playing a game in California, that's a significant amount of travel for a middle of the road college football team. Notre Dame always travels well. I don't care where they go in the country, they travel well. And so I don't see this being a very raucous crowd. Also, as a visitor, one of the ways you take the crowd out of the equation is just to get on top early. And that usually takes the winds out of people's sails. And, if you're up 14 to 21, 17, 21 points at halftime, you get people from the opposite team that are leaving. You get, home crowd people that leave early, which again takes some of the wind out of their sails when it comes to crowd noise. But this game, take being a homer out of the equation, right? So I was born and raised in South Bend, Indiana. That's why I'm a Notre Dame fan. But if I try to remove my bias from the situation and look at things objectively, Notre Dame was like number 4 or 5 last year in scoring defense, and Miami was number 69 in scoring defense. So there's somewhere around 120 or 130 teams in Division I football. But I think Notre Dame's going to be a top defense. Maybe not top 4 or 5, but they're going to have a competitive defense. They got a new coordinator, so Al Golden's gone back to the NFL. But they've got a quality coordinator now. It's going to take him, I think, a year or so to get his system fully implemented. Miami, though, 69 in scoring defense and really not having that dude on the field, right? So if you go talk to anybody who's not a Miami fan and doesn't live in Miami and ask them, who's the star on Miami's defense, they're probably going to say, I didn't know Miami has a star on defense. So, games are won and lost in the trenches, man. And I don't know that without a linebacker or a defensive lineman that can really hold his own, it's tough, right? So on the offensive side of the ball, you've got Miami has Carson Beck. They lost Cam Ward last year, which is significant, right? He was number 1 player drafted, and was an outstanding quarterback. He did a lot with his platform and his chance to shine, and I think he did a commendable job. And it's tough for me to say that about a Miami player, but I say that to say this: you've replaced the number 1 draft pick in the NFL with Carson Beck. Now, Carson Beck isn't a slouch, right? He's not a bad quarterback, but there's some things personality-wise that draw questions. So he was the dude last year and the year before in Georgia, and then the second place quarterback had a chance to come in and play, and then Carson Beck tucked his tail and ran. And if you're scared to compete for the number one job on your team, how is anybody supposed to seriously consider you the best quarterback in the country? So there's that. He shows up in Miami driving a Lamborghini, and gets his Lamborghini stolen. Imagine that in Miami. And I truly think that, with what not wanting to compete at Georgia, coming to Miami where he's guaranteed a starting spot, there's no incumbent starter that he has to beat out, right? That shows me that he's again, that he doesn't want to compete. And when it's over the $10 million, you have to think that he went there for the $10 million. And did he go there for the $10 million because he knows he's not going to be a big-time NFL player, and he wants to get as much money as he can now? He wants to he'll sign with an NFL team, and he'll get his rookie contract, and he'll be 2 or 3 years into the league as a backup, and that'll be everything that we're going to ever see from Carson Beck. So on offense, they're taking a significant step back. Cam Ward wasn't afraid to be the guy. Right, you saw that in the way he played. He had that swagger. Carson Beck has Hollywood, right? He wants to look like he's Tom Cruise walking a red carpet, and that's the difference. Cam Ward wants to compete. He wants to be a football player. Carson Beck wants to, take a walk down the Hollywood the Walk of Fame. Miami also lost their top 6 receiving targets, right? So as much production as Cam Ward had last year, they lost their top 6 receivers. One of those, I think, was a running back, but had a lot of passing production. So their receiver with the most production is average so far in his career, less than 1 catch a game. So I don't see Miami getting this top 10 ranking, and who is Carson Beck going to throw to? And I don't think Miami has any stud offensive linemen that are going to just enforce their will on anybody. So if Carson Beck has a good year, he's going to have to earn it. But I'm not sold on how competitive he is. I'm not sold on his drive and his desire to be the best quarterback in the country, because he's not even willing to compete to be the best quarterback on his team. So look for this, man. If this is closer than 14 points, I will be thoroughly surprised. I'm looking for Notre Dame to win by 17 to 24 points, and I don't think the scoreboard is going to show the true story of the game. I think Notre Dame's going to win in the trenches. I think they've got position players that are going to make a lot of plays. And I'm not even saying they're in the discussion for the best team in the country, right? So I'm not even going there. But I'm looking at Notre Dame versus Miami Sunday night, primetime game, all eyes on this game. And Jeremiah Love and Notre Dame have probably the best running back room in the country. I don't know that any team has the depth, the versatility, the speed runners, power runners, the athletic people, guys that can make plays in space, guys who can line up in the slot and catch a ball. I truly think Notre Dame has the best running back room in the country. Even their third string back, Aeneas Williams, if you look at when he had his opportunities last year to come in and carry the rock, I think he made the best of his. He pulled a Tom Brady, and he made the best of his opportunities when they were presented. And I think this game's going to get away, and I think Aeneas Williams is even going to have a chance to get 5, 6, 7 carries in this game. So I'll make a prediction here, and I'm not going to delete it. I'm not going to edit it out. And so I'm looking for Notre Dame to win by at least 17 to 24 points. And, part of that is because I think Notre Dame has a quality team this year. Part of that is I don't think Miami has a quality team this year. I think they're overrated. The only team that I think is more overrated than Miami is Clemson. So I think Clemson had like 3 to 5 first place votes this year on the preseason rankings, and I don't see what's so great about the Clemson Tiger program that warrants them getting first place rankings. Not when you look at teams like Georgia, Texas, Ohio State, like those teams. To me, if there's a number one vote right now in the preseason outside of those 3 teams, you have to wonder, is it the ACC trying to ACC coaches and ACC media outlet voters who are trying to increase the rankings of their teams to try to position as many teams as they can in the playoffs? I just don't see what Clemson showed last year that would indicate that they're deserving of a first place vote. And here's the other thing. I don't think that there should be any rankings in the preseason, right? So, and I think that there's question marks with every team. Both teams have lost players. So I think that the preseason, I don't think there should be a ranking until after week 3 is completed myself. And here's the thing, right? So let's say Ohio State on any given year is preseason ranked, in the top 5. First weekend they lose a game, they keep it kind of competitive, they're going to drop to maybe 8 or 9. Second weekend they drop a game, competitive or not, they lose 10 or 12 spots. They're still ranked in the top 25. And for what, right? They're ranked in the top 25 because they had such high expectations going into the season. But 2 or 3 weeks into the football season, what have you done to warrant a top 25 ranking when you haven't won a game? And so for me, I'm not a fan of any teams being ranked until after week 3 is complete. That's just me. And so what that does is it allows these conferences to position as many teams as they can, as high as they can, so they're in a position where they can lose a game or 2 and still make the playoffs, right? And I think that takes away from it. If you wait till after week 2 or 3 and the darling, one of the darlings is 1-2 or 0-2, and they had a bye week or an off week, then it's going to be hard to even rank them, because what have they done? Have they won a game? No. How do you justify putting them in the top 25 when they're without a win? And so I'm against rankings preseason week 1, 2 altogether. Now, if we are going to have a ranking, how do you justify ranking anybody who didn't win the national title last year number 1 the following year? So to me, they've earned it, right? So if we're going to go and when we give teams preseason rankings, what are we doing? We're ranking them in the top 25 based on what we saw last year. So if we're taking what we saw last year into consideration, to me, man, you're king of the mountain until somebody knocks you off. So that's my problem with the top 25. I have some problems with college voting in general. I guess it's not that big of a deal now because of NIL and what's happened there, but Craig James was one of the players at SMU that led to SMU getting the death penalty in college football. And so if he was crooked as a college football player, how do you give him a Heisman vote, right? So, if if you're going to strip Reggie Bush of his Heisman, but you're going to let Craig James vote for who gets the Heisman Trophy, there's a there's a significant moral problem with that equation. So anyhow, look for big games. We got one tonight. I don't know if it's a big game, but I'm definitely going to watch it. It's interesting. Baylor and Auburn, and middle of the road SEC teams, but I think the matchup is pretty even. Look for Auburn to win that one. Looking at Notre Dame, Miami, I think Notre Dame's going to win. I think it's going to be convincing. Looking at Clemson and LSU, I give LSU the edge, but man, I can't get behind either coach. And then big game against Ohio State in Texas, and man, I'm looking for. I think Texas is going to win that game. I know they lost Quinn Ewers, but they have Arch Manning. They've lost a couple of receivers. They've lost some production on the offensive side, but Ohio State got depleted on the offensive side, and they've got a new quarterback that came in that really hasn't had to be that guy in any situation so far in college. So looking for Texas to pull out that game week 1. If Ohio State can pull it out, they've justified why they're ranked so high, no matter how much production they've lost. I'm not a Ryan Day fan by any means whatsoever, but he puts a quality product on the field, so I got to give him that. And really, that's it for college football week 1, and looking forward to it. Go Irish. USF Bulls made me proud. Let's hope they can stay competitive against Florida and maybe pull out a win against Miami. So what a gauntlet if you're going by preseason rankings to start out the year. USF that kind of underperformed last year, and then this year they start the season with number 25, Boise State, one of the top 15 ranked teams in the University of Florida, and right now they're ranked number 10 with University of Miami. I don't believe Miami is going to be a top 15 team when they play USF, but I mean, if you look at the way it's starting, number 25 in the country, top 15 team, and top 10 team, that's a preseason gauntlet for USF. And if they can navigate that and make it a successful year, not let any of that, if they drop a game or two, not letting that derail their season, be successful. So USF, made me proud. Go Bulls. Notre Dame, handle your business Sunday night and show the world what kind of fraud Miami is, and it might as well expose it early. So can't wait.